This is TWiT.
Some 6-color chats from Jason Snell. Total Apple revenue. It is not one of, this is Q2, so it's not their big Q1 where they make all the money on the iPhone. Yeah, it's not the holiday sales.
But if you note that their Q2 is now bigger than only a couple of years ago for the big
it's
Q4.
the biggest Q2 ever.
Yeah.
The only bigger quarters are those big iPhone quarters.
But look back, you only go a couple quarters back, and this one is bigger than their biggest quarter ever.
Yeah,
quite a growth.
It's really amazing. It's really amazing. Revenue by category. I always look to see if it's going to be less iPhone because I think that's healthy for the company. But of course, it's still 52%. Services now 20% of revenue. Wearables 9%, Mac 11%. Glad to see that. iPad 8%. Actually, here's the deal. Okay, this is the, what was I looking at? What was the chart before that? Total Apple revenue.
Yep.
And then what's that? Then this is Mac revenue.
Yep.
Look at that. And they did say
Mac,
that half of the people who bought Macs this quarter were first-time buyers, switchers.
Plus the M1.
That is really good for Apple, isn't it? That is really good. Yep. Holy cow. Second best Mac quarter ever after only second to last quarter.
Yep.
Revenue is up 15% year over year for the Mac. iPad revenue, though, a little bit down.
iPad sort of had like the worst of the quarter because any supply constraints got shoved off onto iPad this quarter. So any components that were shared between iPhone and iPad, for example, those went to the iPhone. So the brunt of the shortages ended up hitting the iPad.
So this down 2% year over year. Not as bad as last quarter. It was down 14% year over year. So last quarter was terrible. iPhone revenue, $50 billion. 50 billion. Did they talk on the call about iPhone sales? Because we've seen rumors that, for instance, people weren't buying, that they were going to slow down on some models, and
they're great except for the Mini.
They're great except for the Mini.
Well, but yeah.
I
mean, the Mini, it's that thing was like, 95% of the noise on Twitter really represents 5% of the market. And everybody on Twitter is a designer or like an entrepreneur or like a founder, and they want a small phone. But the majority of people are gravitating towards bigger phones. So Apple tested it. It didn't perform well. So now we're going to get 2 bigger phones with the next one.
Let's see. We left off at iPhone revenue. Revenue up 5% year over year. Not the biggest ever. Services. That's been linear all along. Now almost $20 billion, 20% of the revenue. And according to Trip Mickle, this was all Tim Cook's doing.
Yep. But a better Wall Street narrative and good opportunity to build upon the iPhone as a user base by getting more money out of the same customers, because you start running out of customers at a certain point when you get big.
What do they call it? Revenue per user?
Yes. Average revenue per user, ARPU.
ARPU. That's how you bring,
especially
because the problem I imagine, and I think Trip Mickle wrote about this, they were facing as a saturation of the market. You can't continue to grow at that pace because pretty soon everybody who has an iPhone.
You think that, and then they keep growing. Like the best part is they were worried about you can't keep growing. The iPhone keeps growing, and they also are now growing this entire other revenue vertical. So it's interesting.
So we're still working on Andy's audio. I'm not sure what's going on. Year over year service revenue change up 17%. Not the biggest growth, but still 17%. Pretty good. I wouldn't turn it down.
I know new services launched, like new services have been launching for a while, which getting the boost. Yeah.
Apple One still king of the services. And you know what? I've been slamming Apple TV. I wasn't real happy with some of the early shows. I know Ted Lasso was a big hit. I watched the morning show season 2. It was so awful. So it really disappointed me. And yet there have been some really good newer things. Slow Horses on Apple TV is stunning. They've done a really good job with the newer stuff, and I think this is
the one everybody but me's watched. It's not Servant. It's
I'm not crazy about Servant.
No, it's that other one that everyone's talking about. They went crazy for the finale just recently.
Oh, Severance. Woo!
Severance, I haven't seen it yet.
So Severance is interesting because it's kind of about work-life balance, right? It's kind of about how work has become more and more horrible. It's very much a political story, but it's not. It's a thriller, but you realize at the end, this is about life. It's kind of like first there was The Office, then there was Severance. But it's a little hard at first because it's so sensually deprived. It's a weird, you'll see, but it's not a great place to be because it's work. But by the end, and I have to say the end at the worst possible time, it's just like, oh my God.
Huge buzz though.
If I were you, I would wait till season 2 before you watch it because you're going to go, Yeah,
there's a hatch in a sequence of numbers that keep showing up, is my understanding. They suddenly find a hatch in the Lost Island. And
they kind of do. They find a hatch. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I really feel like they're getting better and better. The Tom Hanks stuff, Finch wasn't so great, but Greyhound was. They've done some deals now with some of the best directors in Hollywood.
Shining Girls is getting good buzz.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch Shining Girls. Yeah. So
and it's turned out to be a better model than Netflix. Netflix is having more
surprise,
trouble.
Surprise.
It's like the new HBO.
I think that
it ain't about catalog; it's about original content. But the thing is, Netflix can never compete with Apple because Apple doesn't need to make money on Apple TV Plus.
Yep, same as Spotify.
Well, yeah, I think that the other thing is that I was really trying to analyze it because I dropped Netflix and I was trying to figure out why it didn't matter. And what happened was I lost Netflix for 3 months and I didn't notice. Oh. That's what happened. It just I changed my credit card number. And I had realized that it's been 3 months. When I look back, I was like, I haven't paid since like January or whatever, and I hadn't been watching anything, and I realized that for me, part of it is that it's so hard to keep up with these things. So the things that were keeping me coming back to Netflix were like Chef's Table, so I was waiting for the next season for that. I was waiting for the next season of a couple other documentary things. There were definitely things that I was really into. It's just that they didn't maintain them. Like they just left them go. And I guess they decided there wasn't enough viewers. But the problem is then I was like, well, I'm not watching anything. They also have
too much stuff, Right. So Apple TV, it was a slow start, but of course it's a new service. It takes them a while to find their voice, and it's gotten really good.
The other thing is that everybody does this. They're playing with the shelves. Like, how do we set? Yeah. They're constantly changing our shelves. For Netflix, I'm like, the number one thing I watch on Netflix is stand-ups. So why don't you keep a shelf there all the time?
They should know.
But I would come in and the shelf would be gone. And now I'm like, okay, now where do I find another? Where do I find this? I don't know anymore. I don't know how to find stand-ups. And you must watch my behavior and go.
You think it's new and it's not.
Oh, and here's the thing, and the thumbnail keeps changing, and they change the thumbnails, and you pop up, and you're like, oh, that's just what I already saw, and it just gets really frustrating. I find like changing thumbnails really drives me absolutely crazy.
I agree that Netflix's biggest problem is bad software.
Yeah.
They could do so much better and have so much crap. There's so much stuff in there. They need to do a better job with their software.
And they have like a whole shelf for like new releases, and all of them are like a year or more old. Which is like false advertising.
I know. All right. Let's see. Wearables, home accessories, wearables and home and accessories up 8.8. No, I'm sorry. Revenue was 8.8 billion. The revenue change
a lot of
was
the
up
purchases
12%.
were first-time Apple Watch purchases again as well, so it's still continuing.
Yeah, I didn't read the transcript for the call, and I wasn't on the call. So if you have any color to add,
for sure,
from the call, please do. Wearables, home, and accessories. So it's the home pods. It's the what? What are accessories?
It's basically Apple Watch, AirPods, and then like the HomePod stuff. Like that's the big.
Okay.
Yeah. Ancillary things.
All right. That's a big business for them, Total Apple profit. It's a profit deal, $25 billion, the largest ever in a non-Q1.
Yep.
$25 billion in 3 months. Not bad. That's up 9% year over year. Regional revenue, and this is really about how
I was just going to add that, so a lot of them were congratulating Tim on how well that Apple managed the whole management of the crisis.
Yeah.
But then they also had this $4 to $8 billion that they're worried about for the next quarter, and that's really dominated a lot of the conversation, mostly because Tim's color was that some of that they're going to recapture because there are people who really need new things and they're still going to buy them. They're just going to have to wait a little bit longer. But any impulse buys, like if people just said, I want this, I'm going to buy this now, it's not available, that they might lose. And that was just a little bit of a concern.
So and is it all supply chain that they're concerned about that's going to cause this?
legacy nodes, like it's chip shortages on legacy nodes. There still seem to be okay with leading edge nodes, although it does sound like they're prioritizing iPhone at the expense of iPad for a lot of this stuff. And also the closures, like the whole Shanghai corridor has been closed, draconianly closed, and Apple is prioritized because of their ties with the Chinese government and with the local industry. There's so much of the local economy in those areas. They get prioritized, but getting parts from other places is really hard, and getting those places back up and running is really hard.
Yeah, it's tough. Let me just take a look. If you were to order a MacBook Pro 14-inch today, I just see you'd be able to get it in June. So that's not awful. Yeah. You'd be able to
Although
get it.
it should be almost nothing by now. It was announced October of last year.
Yeah, it's 7 weeks out. The 16-inch is also 7 weeks out.
And that's like loss of immediate sales for Apple, which is what this whole thing has been about.
Let's look at the Mac Studio. I'm curious how long the delay would be for a nice.
And there was a rumor today that already ramping up for the iPhone because they're worried that there won't be enough people available to make them physically.
Yeah. Also 7. Well, depends on which studio you get. If you get the high end, 7 weeks out. They're actually doing pretty well on the base model. So those
are made to order though. So like it's one SKU. Like there's not the same kind of pre-built SKUs. Like they can pop the right memory modules in and ship them. So it's not easier, but it's a much lower. It's a small batch for Apple compared to mass-produced products like MacBook Pro. Or iPhone.
Yeah. Regional revenue, a big jump for China. In fact, China's the biggest chunk China's had of Apple's revenue ever. Of course, America's nice steady growth there. Europe seems to be tailing off. Japan and the rest of Asia Pacific kind of flat. This is in billions of dollars. So China's a big. Yeah. You can see how important China is, almost as important as the EU at this point. And year-over-year growth, that's where you really see the spike. Why is Apple doing so well in China? Did they say?
I don't know if they said specifically. They just said that they were, but Chinese manufacturers haven't been doing well either. Right. I think Apple is just so well managed, and they're in esteem. Like you get face for using Apple products.
It wasn't so long ago that Apple was saying, "Oh, headwinds in China, and sales are going to drop." In fact, you see these big plummets here in previous years, 2020.
Tim is really good at managing that relationship.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
So if you ever have to ask, why does Apple give the Chinese government anything they ask?
Well, to be fair, it's a negotiation. Like Rene said, they have a lot of. If Apple decided, no, we're taking our ball and going home, they say, wait, we can talk.
Yeah,
but it's not as good as what we would like. But as much as I keep on that point, I do acknowledge that Apple knows that it doesn't have to do exactly what they want, and oftentimes there's a negotiation behind the scenes that we never see.